to the Make a Mental Note podcast, where mental health professionals share information and perspectives that illuminate, educate, and is worthy of a mental note. And now your host, Chris Quarto.
Hi, everyone. This is Chris Quarto. Welcome to the Make a Mental Note podcast. I hope you're having a good week so far. Well, the mental health tip for today has to do with helping others. You know, it's easy to get wrapped up in our own problems and the rut of daily life. And, in these cases, it may help to do something that'll help you look beyond yourself. And I think volunteering your time for a cause or an issue that you care about is a good way of doing this. In fact, research shows that volunteering in ways that helps others can enhance mental health. Think of someone you can help, whether it's a friend, a neighbor, or an organization in the community like a Boys and Girls Club, or maybe it's a nursing home or a soup kitchen. If you have kids and they attend a school, then you might volunteer to help out with their club or sports team. Doing this kind of stuff not only helps you shift the focus from you to the big picture, but also helps you feel good about yourself because you're doing something to improve the lives of others. So that's my mental health tip for the day. Okay, let's listen to today's podcast interview with Anne-Marie Hall. Hi, everyone. Welcome again to the Make a Mental Note podcast. Thanks for joining me. Well, today's guest is Anne-Marie Hall, who is a licensed professional counselor in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And welcome to the podcast, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, why don't you start off by telling the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living?
Like you said, my name is Anne-Marie Hall, and I am from this area. I was born and raised in Kentucky, basically, but moved to Murfreesboro in college and love it so much I just stayed here.
Okay.
I had quite a little bit of a journey, but currently I am a therapist in private practice. I'm really so fortunate. I have a private practice off of Case and Lane,
okay.
Which I share office space with 5 other therapists.
Oh.
Social workers, an LMFT, and another LPC.
All right.
And so that's what I do. I just get to sit and talk to people for a living, and
Isn't that great?
I feel very blessed. It's wonderful.
It's a wonderful profession, isn't it?
It really, really is.
Well, how long have you been in the counseling field, Anne-Marie?
I actually added it up, and I technically started in 1993, so that's 22 years, I think, if I'm doing my math right. It doesn't seem quite possible, but 22 years.
It goes by fast, doesn't it?
It does. It absolutely does.
What kind of settings have you practiced in? Have you always been in private practice, or is this a newer thing for you? Where else have you practiced?
When I started, I worked at the Guidance Center in a program that was federally funded, a grant program, and I worked with the severely and persistently mentally ill, teaching them job skills. And I did that while I was in graduate school. So I did that with my bachelor's degree.
And that's a community mental health center, the Guidance Center.
It is.
Okay.
It is. And I've got to tell you, I think that was one of the best things I ever did.
Oh.
I kind of fell into it because I didn't think you could get a job in mental health with a bachelor's degree. I thought I had to wait. But my mother ran into someone at church who educated her otherwise. And so I started working at the Guidance Center. And while I didn't make very much money, the experience of working one-on-one with human beings who have severe and persistent mental illnesses, I think helped me shape my attitude towards people with mental illness.
Oh. Okay.
And even in graduate school, as I was learning the diagnoses, it always felt personal because I had met someone with some version of that diagnosis.
Sure.
And also going to the mental health centers, I've found after these 20-some-odd years, I met so many other professionals that the networking it was invaluable. So I know a lot of people think, oh, I need to get out of school and salary is important, and it is. So you do have to pay your bills, but community mental health they can't pay you a whole lot.
Yeah.
But man, that experience was worth its weight in gold.
It's a good foundation, isn't it?
Oh man, it really was.
Yeah.
But I had several jobs there. I did that. I did children's case management for a minute. My maiden name is Toy, and I thought it'd be cool to work with children until I did. And I was like, no, thank you. And so after that, I went to the crisis response team, and I loved that work. It was fast paced. It was exciting. A lot of variety, and I did that for several years, and then I decided I wasn't making enough money, honestly. And went to Parthenon Pavilion and did intakes for 4 years. And that was about the time I remember I was sitting at home. I had my master's degree in clinical psychology and from MTSU, and Dr. Hamilton called me. I was so surprised. She was one of my professors in my graduate work, and she asked if I was licensed, and I said no. And long story short, with her assistance and taking a few more classes, I went ahead and worked on my licensure while I was working at Parthenon. And from there is when I went into private practice.
So you've gotten a lot of great experience. I mean, the mental health, the psychiatric hospital doing the intakes, and the private practice. So really, a lot of varied experiences there. What made you decide to go into the helping profession, Anne-Marie?
I thought that was a really awesome question, and it's not my answer. I don't hear a lot from my colleagues. I wanted to know how people's brains worked, and I'm a humanist. I love people. I'm very social, but I didn't really think of it as going in to help people or make the world a better place. And I think that is probably comes more from my clinical background. I was curious. Why do people do the things they do? And kind of like a detective work strategy with thoughts and relationships. And and that is, I think that carries over to how I approach working with my clients now. But don't get me wrong, I want to make the world a better place as I can, and I love helping people. Those two things just seem to be a bonus to what I get to do.
So you were just naturally curious about people, and what kind of motivates them to do the things that they do, and that kind of got you into this field. That's really neat.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess another piece of that, as you're saying that, is the relationship part. If I could have gotten some sort of emphasis in either undergraduate or graduate school, or more undergraduate, it would have been social psychology. People's interactions and relationships, why people make the friends they make, why people get into the romantic relationships, and what happens as that all kind of unfolds. And I do find that I've focused on that a lot in my practice.
I think there's a lot to be said about those undergraduate classes in psychology, and even really in sociology, how that kind of helps provide a foundation for understanding people and to help them in your work as a therapist. So I like what you said about getting those undergraduate classes. And so now you're in private practice and you're working with adults primarily. Is that correct?
primarily, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When you,
I
go ahead.
Yeah, no. My favorite population still to this day is college students, and I love adulthood development.
All right.
I think it was kind of underrepresented in maybe my undergraduate and graduate education. We were sort of starting to talk about development across the lifespan. But I didn't take that class until I went back to get my extra classes for the license. And for a long time, and maybe it was just also me, what I understood is you turned 18 and you were done. And no one really talked about all the different things that happened to you as you aged through your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Sure.
You'd hear midlife crisis, and then you'd hear, oh, well, now you're just being shipped off to a nursing home. But there's so many different developmental stages and that go on as we are adults, especially as adolescence is extending. And I'm seeing more and more people put off a lot of the traditional things that they do as adults, buying houses, getting married, moving out on their own. And so that college age, they're excited, they're motivated. I don't know. I think it also helps keep me young. Maybe I'm delusional about that, but I feel like it keeps me young.
Yes. Well, that's a good point. Development doesn't stop when a person turns 18, and it just changes. And there are certain things that people continue to have to deal with and struggle with. And I just heard you say that maybe people are putting off things a little bit later, whether it's buying a house or getting married or whatnot. Why do you think that's the case? Do you have any ideas why that might be, Anne-Marie? Why people are kind of delaying those developmental transitions or decisions?
What I find when I talk to people is, well, it's a little more complicated than this, but fear. Feeling overwhelmed, like, oh, wow, I've reached this stage, either graduating from high school or graduating from college, and now I have to decide what I do for the rest of my life.
Oh.
And to think that when you are 20, 25 years old, that seems like a long time.
Yeah.
And kind of the pressure of, I have to commit now, forever. I don't know if they're always conscious of that, but I think they tend to freeze up. And at least that's what a lot of people who come to me with the anxiety about growing up. And they're like, oh, but if I pick this, then I can't do anything else. Or they've been told by their parents, well, if you pick it, you have to stay for a while because you want your job, you want to have a good, solid job record.
Right.
And when you're 20, 5 years, again, sounds like a long time because it's a quarter of your life.
That's right.
So I kind of help them. I say 5 years really isn't that long. It doesn't have to be 5 years anyway. And I do go back to occasionally, if it's appropriate. You have to be very careful sharing personal stuff with clients. But I'll explain, I did mental health, but I could tick off all sorts of jobs that I did within that field. If I'd get bored, I'd change other things. Even within the things I shared with you guys, I had different jobs within the crisis team. I had different jobs at the hospital. I stayed in my same job, but it wasn't like the death sentence. It could have been.
Yeah.
or not that it could have been, but I could have imagined.
Well, I think the issue is it's a huge decision to have to make. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I think if you kind of look at it in developmental terms, if you remember back to Erickson and Eric Erickson, his stages of psychosocial development. And, at that stage from about 12 to 20, people are at that stage of having to figure out, who am I? What do I want to do?
Right.
That whole identity development. And it's not an easy thing to figure out. And I think, with people that I've worked with in therapy or students, whatever the case, I've found that there's a lot of trial and error and making mistakes, trying something out and figuring out, that's not really me, but I think it might be a little more down this path, so I'm going to try that. And so I think there's a lot of trial and error in trying to figure that stuff out, isn't there?
Absolutely. That is an excellent point. And that's one reason I love the college age, because it's kind of a safe place to make those trials and errors. I feel like my perception is from here, I'm in a little bit of a minority in my mental health profession in that I joined a sorority in college.
Oh.
And I think that, and I was pretty active in it, and I've remained active as a volunteer after the fact. And I think that that's where I learned the trial and error as existing in there and as helping the girls after the fact. And I can generalize that to college. I don't think everyone has to be in a sorority, but it certainly is a nice place to practice leadership skills, to practice friendships, to sort out hurt feelings, to learn, how to do well, to make your grades, or to not do well in your grades, and then have someone to be accountable to who are your peers.
Right.
And so I look at that experience, both from my own experience and from, like I said, helping the girls. And I just think that's really why I focus in on the college age, because I see the trial and error being such a valuable stage of development.
Right.
And if you can do it on scales that aren't life altering, for the most part, then it is a little bit safer.
Well, when you think about college students and some of the issues that they're dealing with, I mean, you kind of think about, what are the themes and what are the issues that they're dealing with. You think about identity development. That seems to be a big one there. And what are some other things or other issues or themes that you see emerging in your work with college-age students, Anne-Marie?
Separation from their families. And you can read about helicopter parents and lawnmower parents, and then you can bemoan the next generation, which just grates on my nerves, because to make generalizations like that is just asinine, in my opinion. Sure. Yep. You meet these individual young people, and man, we're going to be just fine. They're awesome in the things they've overcome. But the thing that I do see that's different than what I experienced, and it seems my peers experienced, is the staying at home longer, staying tied to your parents longer. As far as laying out fault and blame, that doesn't matter. Who cares about that? But there does seem to be a closer relationship as far as financially supporting, but also being there. They stay living with their parents longer, and then will go to school from home. Okay. And so they still have that ongoing relationship and communication with them. And so, but at some point, there's still, I think, you can see that angst as wanting to be autonomous, but again, back to being kind of afraid to get away from them. And I guess if you wanted to step back and say economy and finances, they don't want to get in debt. And that seems to, I've got probably 4 or 5 of my clients right now, which is a good good number of my current caseload who that's what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
Often I'll tell people to imagine two lines on a grid sheet, and they're at the bottom of the graph where you're a kid and you can't take care of yourself at all. Your parents have to feed you and bathe you and everything. So your parents are completely taking care of you.
Right.
But then as you move through life, you start taking care of yourself more, and they start taking care of you less. And the point of where that crosses varies based on your relationship, but it usually starts in middle school, high school, and goes into adulthood. And I think that line's moving to older. But that angst, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think there are very practical reasons, sort of like what you were talking about, economic reasons and so on and so forth, as to why some students decide to stay home while they're attending college. But I wonder if there's a trade-off. If, I'm living at home, but what's going to happen if I do that? What are some of those trade-offs, Anne-Marie, of that age of a student deciding I'm going to stay and live at home while I go to college?
Like trade-offs, like what they lose or what they gain?
Yeah, I guess developmentally is sort of what I'm thinking too, since we're kind of all talking about, this theme of development. And does this have a negative impact on a student developmentally?
In my opinion, and it's my opinion, it can.
All right.
Because I think that I see them continuing to rely on their parents for financial things. Also, continue developmentally missing some of the struggle. And I'm not saying you have to walk uphill in the snow to school every day, but the struggle of not being able to have enough money to do something that you want, which can trigger you to, if you talk about positive and negative reinforcement, if all of a sudden I don't have enough money to go out with my friends because I've spent it all, or if I miss my electric bill, these are real life lessons that I think have so much more impact than make sure you pay your bills or you'll get in trouble. Well, if that's always in theory, as you get older, you've never experienced that. And again, we talked about that kind of magic or golden age of where you can practice without any big repercussions. If you're still with your parents in that time, then you're not really experiencing the negative consequences, and you might have to experience them later, or maybe even after your parents are gone. And I don't know. I think we haven't really seen what the outcome might be. Although I love the next generation, and I think they'll figure it out. But and maybe, I don't know, they're not figuring out the way I figured it out and my peers figured it out, but maybe they'll figure it out even better. I'm not sure. I'm curious. Again, there's my curious brain watching.
Yeah, or maybe they figure it out, but they don't figure it out until a little bit later, as compared to, when we were that age and growing up and kind of going through those phases of life as well. Well, a lot of times, the reason that clients seek out counseling, they're having these feelings that are bothering them, creating problems for them. Where do these feelings come from, Anne-Marie? These, when you see these college-age students and, they're having all these different feelings, what kind of feelings are they having, and where do you think they're coming from? Being a good graduate of MTSU's program in the mid-'90s, I have a real strong background in cognitive behavioral therapy. And so when you ask where do feelings come from, I jump right to they come from our thoughts. And our thoughts are habitual ways of thinking, and that we may not even realize our thoughts, and because they're automatic and
And so we just kind of think, well, no, there's no thought. I just feel. But
Mm-hmm.
if we dig, I can usually find thoughts or beliefs, which are really thoughts, and find these out. And so, let's see. I was on a roll there for a second. Sorry. So, where do the feelings come from?
Mm-hmm.
What was the question again?
Well, I was kind of wondering, you have these college students who have
Mm-hmm.
these feelings and that are bothering them, obviously. I wonder,
Right.
in your discussions with them, what kind of feelings are we talking about, and where do these negative feelings come from?
We're talking, okay. And so the cognitive therapy part is good. That's a little inside.
Yeah.
I think it's the belief that and the thought that they have to be perfect or they have to be right. What I get from them, I see a lot of people with anxiety.
All right.
And I advertise that I primarily see people with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we could talk for another 30 minutes about how I've never seen anybody with anxiety who didn't have a little depression or vice versa. But primarily anxiety, although I see people also who have their primary diagnosis is depression, their primary diagnosis is bipolar disorder. That's about where I stop. Every now and then I get a little bit off of those three, but most people fit into those three categories.
Okay.
And so when they have anxiety, I think we have these beliefs that things need to be right and they need to be perfect. And if they aren't going that way, or we're not seeing these results, or we look around and see other people who appear to have everything together, you start having this belief that I'm doing it wrong, something's wrong with me. And so they develop coping skills that with their anxiety, whether it be obsessive little rituals or even the panic attacks, which is not really a coping skill, it's a reaction. But they do that because they're feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough, and they're comes in the depression thought.
Right.
So I do think that it all gets wrapped up in there.
Yeah. So looking at how, looking at how a person thinks about things, whether it's I've got to do things perfectly, or the perfectionism type of thing, or the types of things that they tell themselves, or their beliefs about different issues, that has an impact on their feelings. And what you're saying is that it can result in anxiety or depression in some people. And so when you have these clients that come in to see you, I imagine that you have a particular way that you help them not feel so bad, not feel so anxious or depressed. So what's your recipe for success in helping people feel better?
I think it's twofold. One, I think one thing that I do naturally for some reason, but I also try to do intentionally, is I create an environment of unconditional positive regard. While we studied primarily back in cognitive behavioral theory, I just really enjoyed Carl Rogers' approach to therapy. And I do truly believe that if you create an environment of unconditional positive regard for people, that they blossom. And that not true to Rogers' theory of simple reflection. I do pull in, when I reflect back to clients, when I talk to them, I do two things. One, I educate them on the principles of cognitive behavioral therapy as far as changing the way we think about things.
Okay.
And two, I guess actually I educate them directly with those things, and then I educate them by example. When they tell me something, I will reframe it back to them or repeat it in a different way to try to have them hear about thinking this way repeatedly until I have been told by them that they'll hear my voice in their ears. When they're out doing something, they'll be like, well, Anne-Marie would say this. And, oh, I knew you would tell me this if I called you. And I love that. That is such an honor that someone's telling you that. And so I really do care about my clients. Of course, within healthy boundaries.
Right.
But they're wonderful people who, for 99% of them, work super hard to the best of their ability to try to get better. But there are always challenges to that. This isn't easy.
Sure. Mental note takers, this is good stuff that Anne-Marie is talking about the whole notion of trying to identify how do you go about thinking about things, and are any of those thought patterns that you have, are they negative? Are you setting yourself up for failure? Do you have those perfectionistic tendencies or ways of thinking about yourself or the way that things should be done? And if that's the case, maybe there's something that you can do just a little bit differently this week to tweak one of those thoughts, to look at things maybe from a different angle or in a different way. And Anne-Marie, I guess this is sort of the way that you go about helping your clients. And I not only heard that it's not only helping them identify and changing the thoughts, but it's also the environment that you set for this to happen. In your case, you mentioned those words, unconditional positive regard. And for the audience who may not be familiar with that, we're talking about being non-judgmental. We're talking about being very accepting of the person, no matter their background or whatever problems that they're having, that you're going to be totally accepting of them. And that pretty much sets the stage for the work that you do with the cognitive behavioral therapy, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does. People just want to be heard. We spend so much time being exposed to so much information and to being busy and to feeling like we need to achieve. And those are great. But there's such a magic in sitting down for a session and just listening and to be heard. I will add here, I think it's very important for mental health professionals to stay mentally healthy themselves. And so there have been times over my career that I too have gone to a therapist because I think that's the responsible thing to do. And there are nerves in sitting there going, oh my goodness, I'm getting ready to tell somebody this stuff, and what am I doing? But oh my goodness, I'm a therapist, shouldn't I? And then I tell myself, no.
Yeah.
You practice what you preach. And once you get in there and you start talking to somebody and they're just listening to you and nodding along and they're paying it, oh my goodness, that's almost half the battle.
Yeah. There's nothing like that, is it? I mean, and I've been in therapy
really
myself too, and there's and it's different being, in the other chair, I guess, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
But to have a person truly listen to you in a non-judgmental way, like you were saying, and to actually experience that in the shoes of, being in the client's shoes, there's nothing like that. So you know that if that's something that you experience, and the impact being a client yourself at one point, if you know that that's the way that you experience it, that this is something that I need to do as a therapist with my clients, because it really sets that foundation for what occurs. Now, when you're working with clients and, the college students on their issues or whatever the case may be, and trying to help them, with this whole identifying the thoughts and changing, what are some of the challenges in doing that? Because I imagine that it's just not as easy as telling them, okay, you have this negative thought, you have to change it. I mean, there must be some challenges in helping clients, get to the point where they can do this and it's benefiting them.
Absolutely. There really are challenges. I am fortunate, and one of the reasons I do enjoy working with college students and adults, I work all the way to Medicare age, and that's only because of the limitations right now with Medicare billing in our license, but that's changing, yay. Is they want to come. I'm not working with people who are being told they have to come see me. So I've already got them bought in to that point. But I still have people who are like, well, I'm here, but I'm not real sure what you can do for me. And so, actually, I wrote something down for that. There's the key to get them to buy in. Honestly, I went back to, when I thought about that question, I went back to, again, creating that environment of unconditional positive regard. Because if they see that you're going to accept them from where they are, they're going to learn to trust you and trust what you say. And so I do a lot of education as far as telling them what I'm doing and telling them that they can do it. And so it's like teaching them that you can do this. This isn't a magic bullet, that you can do this. And no, not magic bullet, magic wand. This isn't a magic wand, that you can do this. And the other thing is, I'm finding more and more, my clients are not coming to me unaware of these things. They've Googled it. They've Googled it. They've looked up on apps. There are apps that can tell you, think of this positive thought every day. And they definitely can help in their tools that I encourage my clients to use. I mean, Google's there, and we're gonna live with it. I mean, some people resist. They don't get on the internet and look stuff up. I just encourage people, if you do, make sure you're looking at a reputable site with actual people with letters after their names telling you what to think, or not what to think, but telling you the information. But then we've got two sets of clients in my experience. I've got people who come in who have had some sort of problem, who are feeling very anxious or very depressed, but they have a really good psychosocial environment. And lots of support. And so they come in, I give them the information, we practice it for a while, and then they move on. They might call me a few times if they need something, or come back in to check in. But they've got that psychosocial environment. And then there are other people who don't have much of a support system, and it takes them longer to buy in because of the trust. And that's where I go back to the environment that I create. I really have to establish that rapport with my clients in order to get them to trust me and start doing the things that I ask them to do.
So that really is basic, isn't it, to what you do? I mean, if you don't have the trust, there's not much that you can do. But it was interesting to hear you say that you're big on education and educating the clients about some of these things, the thoughts, and how that relates to feelings and behavior and things of that nature. But what I also heard you say is that some of your clients are coming in having already been exposed to that real basic, I guess, cognitive behavioral theory through the use of apps or by Googling or whatever the case is. So some of our clients are actually more knowledgeable than they have been in the past because of the advent of the internet and all the information that's available. So, well, if you have a person, just kind of some Joe Schmo who's listening to this podcast, they're always interested in advice or little tips that guests can share. And do you have anything that comes to mind just in terms of like a mental health tip that you could share with the audience that might help them, something that they might be able to try?
The mental health tip, when I bring it down to that, is that you really, your life can be the way that you want it to be. And you have the power within yourself to make that happen. You don't have to do it by yourself. I tell people, I educate you, I share information with you. I do have some expertise that you don't have, but it's because that's what I've chosen to study. So I love sharing it with you, and I love finding things out from you that can help you be the person you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also, you've mentioned before that just simple education, just being exposed to it isn't enough.
Uh-huh.
So reach out and don't be afraid to go to a counselor. I don't see people, the people I see are people that I would be friends with. They're people that you see in the store.
Yeah.
They're people that you work with. You don't have to be sick or odd or broken to go to counseling. But one thing that I offer aside from simple education is that accountability.
Mm-hmm.
To when you go to counseling, it's like going to see a personal trainer at a gym.
Uh-huh.
Could you do these exercises on your own? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to do them if you go to your personal trainer on a regular basis. And
Right.
it's assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And I love being that person for you. And I believe that everyone has within themselves to be the person they want to be.
Yeah. So really, it's helping a person believe in themselves, that everybody has the capacity to grow and change and to be the person that they want to be. Sometimes they need assistance in doing that, and that's where they can, call you or whatnot. But, I think that half of the battle really is just picking up the phone and dialing the number to make that first appointment. And, in the past, there's been so much stigma around mental health. I think that's going away now. In the last several years, I think that's really died down. So it's just a matter of, okay, maybe I could, get some input from someone because things aren't working out the way that I want them to. Maybe it'd be a good idea to talk to somebody, even if it's just a few sessions, just to get some input on what's going on and what I can do to make my life better. And Anne Marie, if people wanted to contact you to set up an appointment, how could they do that?
That's another neat thing right now with all the technology we have available.
Yeah.
They can call me at 615-848-4327.
All right.
I will let y'all know that goes, I don't have a receptionist that goes to my phone. So more times than not, you'd have to leave a message because I'm either in session or it's outside of office hours. So you're absolutely welcome to call me. I also have a website, which is AnneMarieLPC.com, and there's an E on Anne, so it's AnneMarieLPC.com.
Okay.
And you can look on there, and you can see pictures of my office. You can see a picture of me. You can play an introductory video and hear my voice. And you can also, if you hover over contact me, you can click on set appointment now, and that will take you to my online appointment services. Actually, it's not even that. My online practice management software.
All right.
Where you can actually click on there and sign yourself up as a client for me and schedule an appointment without ever speaking to me.
Oh, that's neat.
I will call you.
Uh-huh.
I will call you, so it's not totally impersonal. But it's very secure and very HIPAA compliant, and so it's just really easy to set up an appointment. And you're also welcome to email me. It's AnneMarieHallLPC.com, but that email address is on my website too.
Okay.
So there's lots of ways to contact me.
Well, we'll
Yeah.
make sure and put all of your contact information in the show notes from today's interview, and people will be able to access that and get a hold of you if they need to. And I really appreciate you coming on the on the podcast today, Anne Marie. You've really shared a lot of great things, especially as it relating to college students. And given that we have a large university in our town, I think a lot of people could benefit from some of those things that you said. So thanks again for joining me.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Okay.
I really appreciate you having me.
Not a problem. Thanks. All right. That was some good information that Anne Marie provided to us about her experiences counseling college students. And, one of the important things that I think that I took away from this is the fact that development just doesn't stop when somebody graduates from high school and goes to college, that there are a lot more developmental transitions that take place. And in fact, one of my questions for you is this: what's the big developmental question that college students are challenged to answer? Well, that might be, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Having to commit to an occupational or life choice results in anxiety, among some students at least. And so this is where talking to somebody like Anne Marie makes sense, because it's not easy to answer that kind of a question. So I appreciate Anne Marie coming on and telling us how she might work with students to deal with those types of transitions. Well, if you'd like to get the show notes from today's podcast interview, you can log on to my website, chrisquarto.com. to get those notes. Also, if you know of anybody who might be interested in listening to these podcast episodes, please spread the word on Facebook or Twitter. These episodes can be accessed on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Very easy to do. Well, listen, have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you soon.